New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hey everybody, it's Tuesday. It is right about noon Mountain Time. My name is Tracy Brown, and that means it is time for us to dive into what does it look like? What do we need to think about? What do we need to be talking about in our commitment to build, grow, and expand inclusive churches? I'm so glad that you've joined me. Every Tuesday we get together just to spend a little bit of time. And if you are a regular, then you know that you're seeing me. And today I do not have a guest, so we're going to spend about 30 minutes together, 25 or 30 minutes together. And coming up in the next few weeks, I will have a series of guests, and those shows will be more like 55 minutes, right up to a full hour. So, what is the theme for today? The theme for today is, it is not heaven on earth. What is your foundation for inclusion? That was the theme last week. The theme for this week is white, cisgender, and male. And what is it that we expect? What is it that we don't expect? What is it that we want to see? And what does it mean to be visible and vocal about inclusion in our spiritual communities when you are white, cisgender, and male? Now, if you know much about me and about this show, you know that often the theme for the week or the theme for the month often comes because I've been in either an experience or in a conversation that leads to wanting to talk about this particular topic. And let me tell you, there was a conversation recently that I found fascinating. And so you may see in the show description for today these two questions. Who in your church is the most likely identity group to be blamed for creating the need for us to talk about inclusion? And in many, if not most, places, spiritual communities, workplaces, neighborhoods, in most places, people turn to white, straight men and say they're the problem, or they're the ones who created the problem of not having inclusion. Second question, and who in your church is least likely to be expected to be a champion for inclusion? White, straight men, white cisgender men. What is that about? What is that about? So this conversation I was in recently, I was astounded by how much blame, how much shame, how much accusation was being directed toward white straight men. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I just want to thank you for being with me. I can see there's some other folks also who are hanging out. And so you can join in, say hello in the chat or in the comment section, depending on which platform you're on. And you can also add comments or questions throughout this brief time we have together today. Okay, so I am diving in. I think it's really important for us to stop needing to be a victim or to make groups of people villains. Let me be clear. I am not saying that there is not white supremacy. I am not saying that patriarchy has had some negative impacts. I'm not saying either. Both of those things are true. White supremacy has resulted in challenges for all society, including people who are white, and having and being a part of a patriarchal system has negative impacts as well. And that is just fact. And so men have been a part of that, have benefited from that. What I'm talking about is assuming that all white men, all cisgender white men, they have nothing to be concerned about. And so why would they care about inclusion? They have it all. They get everything they want. They have the world bowing down to them and opening everything for them. And they don't care. They want to keep the system the way it is. And they're not champions for the diversity that exists or the inclusion that we are striving to create. This mindset is just as unhealthy as the mindset that, oh, well, we need to, I don't know, people who are in the LGBTQ plus community, like we need to fix things for them. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have such pity for how Black people have been treated in this country or anywhere in the world. And it's just a shame. We need to change that. They're all part of the same mindset that basically holds the current issues or the current challenges in place. So I want to remind all of us, myself included, that we always have around us people who are examples, people who are white and male and cisgender, who have spoken up, who continue to speak up, who challenge the status quo. And we can hold them up as examples, not as perfect. We can hold them up or things they do as examples to break the stereotype, just like we can hold up examples of people in any identity group who are doing something different than the stereotype of how they should should or should not behave. We have people, not just currently, but all throughout the history of time. If we just look at the US, if we only look at the US, right? Many of the changes that occurred because there were white straight men who either spoke up or who made a decision or who took an action. And sometimes that wasn't because they were truly emotionally committed, but they used their power to get something else they wanted. And the side benefit was greater freedom or greater respect for a group that had been marginalized, whether that was women or Black people or the LGBTQ plus community or immigrants or, or. So I don't know, a few months ago, I did a show on the Cartman Triangle or the drama triangle. And I'm reminded often that we don't think about what our vision is. We get the conversation stuck in who's a victim to what villain, and we're going to rescue them. So, right, we're going to be the hero. And it's time for us to move beyond that. In our inclusive spiritual communities, who are you grooming in your church to be spokespeople for inclusion? Now, here's the test. Sacred activism, social justice, injustice, all the political terms. If you use those to guide your initiative in your church, then you are inviting people, if not encouraging people, to also focus on the problem. So, who are you grooming, or who already is speaking up the from being pulled by vision, not pushed by pain? And how many of those people who are literally setting the stage for us to be inclusive because we are spiritually guided to do so, and we are being guided by a spiritual imperative to live universal spiritual principles out loud and in person. How many of those people that are already doing that, or that you are grooming to do that, are white straight men? If you are a leader in a spiritual community and you've assumed that the white men don't have a dog in this hunt, sorry, I'm from Texas. I live in Texas, right? White men don't have a dog in this hunt, so they don't care, and we'll just find a white woman, and we'll find a Black person, male or female, and we'll find somebody who is lesbian or gay or transgender, because these are the people who have something to say about this. Then you are missing an entire demographic that cares. Last week, I was so grateful to be able to see a documentary, The Eternal Song. The Eternal Song is a documentary that juxtaposes the ancient wisdom from indigenous cultures all around the world, and how colonialism has done its best to tamp out or eliminate the wisdom. But now, in a world where so much healing is needed for so many different reasons, it is the ancient wisdom in these indigenous cultures that actually is the medicine for what ails us. And I was blessed to be able to watch the documentary in a room of about 50 people. And it was a room of people from different age groups, different backgrounds, different national origin, a different race, different ethnicity, different gender identity, different sexual orientation. It was a glorious group of people. And we had a little time after watching the documentary for people to share. And I was very much aware of the energy in the room. Even during the film, there were certain times when you could really feel the tension rising. And there were a couple times where the story I made up is what I was feeling was true angst. And there were a few times where it felt like there was pain, and there were a number of times, a lot of times, when you could hear that people in the room were shedding tears. So I wasn't surprised that a white, straight man in the room, after a few people had made comments, raised his hand and shared that there were times when, in watching the film, that were very painful for him. And there were even a few moments where he felt ashamed to be white. However, what he also said was he was glad, and I'm paraphrasing, so I'm not quoting, but he was glad that he endured the film, that he watched the film, because it reaffirmed for him how important it is for him to be different in the world, to speak up, or to build bridges cross culturally. And I wasn't surprised, but there were a number of people in the room who were, right? Who were so quick on a subconscious level to make him a part of the enemy, or to make it partly his fault because he's a white straight man. He will be someone who speaks up. He will be someone who models building relationships with all kinds of people. In fact, he already does that. But it made me think, do we hold people who do that up to the light, and not to put them on a pedestal, but to make sure that their image and their voice is also seen and heard? And I don't think we do. When I think about so many of our New Thought spiritual communities, especially, where there are more women roles, or who are ministers, and so many people who have great visibility who are members of the LGBTQ plus community, this is great. And we do not want to allow the myth and the untruth that white cisgender men don't care about inclusion. We can't let that be true. So I'm inviting you this week to interrupt your false beliefs. I'm going to be interrupting my false beliefs that I'm sure are a part of my subconscious, because it's what society has said is a standard. I'm going to interrupt my false beliefs about men who are white and cisgender, that they don't care about inclusion. And there are some things that I want to encourage you to ask yourself in your church, in your spiritual community, and not necessarily make any immediate change, but just be more conscious of. Because you know that we are absolutely engaged in creating the change as we go forward, right? So, Lenora, yes, the Eternal Song, anyone can watch it. You don't have to wait for a screening, which is what I attended. You can go on theeternalsong.org. The eternalsong.org. And when you scroll down, you can choose to donate and watch it online. And thanks, Lenora Wright, for a donation of $20 or nothing. It's very well explained, you know, for your email address and a donation. But they do say if your donation, if you put the number 0 in, it will still go through and you will get a link to watch the film. Related to that, this is just the first of 12 films, 12 documentaries. So they have the footage for all of the indigenous groups that they interviewed that are represented in the Eternal Song #1. There will be individual videos about all of these cultures, and they'll be released over the next 18 to 24 months. But this one, the Eternal Song, this one just really captures so much about indigenous wisdom, how it has been blocked, and now it is time for us to look at it, to bring it forward, and to celebrate it. So, what can you be doing now? Because if nothing else, I'm always trying to remind you of how you can have conversations and things that you can do now to make a shift. So, one of the questions that I invite you to consider for yourself, but even more importantly, have this conversation with a team of people. Maybe it is a minister in the board. Maybe you are a licensed unity teacher or a prayer chaplain. And within the prayer chaplain team or the licensed unity teacher team, you could have these conversations as well. It is not required for you to be a minister to have this conversation. So, who's being groomed in your church to be a voice for the vision of inclusion? And when you are talking about that, and hopefully there's a list or a group of people who are actually being groomed, who are being given the opportunity to practice, to learn, and to speak up about it. And when you look at that group, are there white straight men in the group? The folks I was in conversation with recently, they had several white gay men, and people would put a story around that. Well, they're part of the LGBTQ plus community. They have a vested interest. And so that's why I'm emphasizing white cisgender men right now, today, in this conversation. So, number one, who is being groomed in your church, and how are they being groomed? Number two, when you have announcements about activities that are coming up or classes that you are hosting or events that your church is supporting, and these things are related to inclusion, is there a white man visible and vocal, either in making the announcement or being a part of who's being featured, or as someone coordinating, gathering people to participate? Where are your white straight men visible and vocal. Number 3 question: do you have a men's group in your church? And if you do, how are they taking up the charge for inclusion? And if they're not doing it organically, how can you put that on their radar? Again, number 3, if you have a men's group in your church, how are they taking up the charge? Now, in the spiritual community that is my home community, we do have a men's group, and it is multi-ethnic and multi-generational. However, my question for the men in our men's group would be, when this is happening, what role are the white straight men playing in promoting this, in talking about its benefit? And I can joyfully say, I'm glad I can say this honestly. Some of you know that in my church, we have created a multi-module series called Facing Racism. And we have many of actually all of our leaders are required to participate in it. But the last time we did it, we had open spots for anyone who was interested, whether they were in a leadership role or not. And so we had a group of, I don't know, out of 30 people, we probably had 10 white straight men. And it was fabulous because the conversation shifted. And from my perspective, a part of the grooming, right? Grooming people to be able to talk about the topic confidently. A lot of that happened during that series. But if I were looking today, and some of those men are actively engaged in our men's group, I can look around now and see, wait a minute, how have we, my question is for myself and my community, how have we leveraged that? And we haven't. We really have not. We haven't gone backwards, but we haven't leveraged that voice in an intentional and strategic way. So 3 questions for you to take into your spiritual community. 1, who are you grooming? Who are you grooming? And within that group, how many of that group are white straight men? Number 2, when you have announcements about things that are happening related to your initiative, your inclusion initiative, whether it's education, programming, events, community service, whatever you're doing in the next quarter that's related to your commitment to being inclusive, where are the white cisgender men visible and vocal? And then number 3, if you have a men's group, whether it is all white or ethnically mixed or includes gay men as well as men who are cisgender, it doesn't matter the makeup of the group. It's how are you using the white straight men to take up the charge. So that's what I want to share with you today. I want you to be thinking about in your community, how are white cisgender men being held accountable for? But, to be held accountable, they've got to first be invited, then secondly, engaged before you can get to the holding them accountable for speaking to the vision that you have for inclusion, for stepping up as champions for inclusion, and for being recognized not as exceptional, but as a part of the group who understands our spiritual imperative to recognize and value all people and to grow our spiritual community by serving all kinds of people. Yeah, you want to recognize and reward them the same way that you recognize and reward others. Final comment, I just want to reinforce that it is time for us to get beyond victim and villain. We don't do inclusion because we want to punish the villains and we want to save those poor victims. That is not why we do inclusive work in our spiritual communities. We know and recognize that there is one source of life, all life. It has created all life from itself for good. And it is our job in the human experience to demonstrate harmony and unity and love as principles of God. So I'm so glad you are with me today on the Inclusive Church. I hope that if any of this resonates with you, that you will actually maybe go back and pull out some of the past shows from Inclusive Church. The QR code for the playlist is on your screen. And you can absolutely find more topics like this and also great interviews with featured guests. And you can join me right here every Tuesday at noon Mountain Time on the New Thought Media Network.
Thanks for watching The Inclusive Church with Tracy Brown. Join us again next week at 12 noon Mountain Time.